Buenas tardes a todos. Good afternoon. Let's give some time for the media to connect. Okay. I think we are all. So we will start our press conference. Vamos a comenzar nuestra conferencia de prensa. Primera pregunta.
We're going to start the press conference now. The first question, raise your hands or you may begin speaking. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Alex. Cyber News.
Yes, I wanted to take the opportunity that Cameron McKenzie has begun his functions as a member of the board. Could you tell me basically what are your priorities within the board? And I would also like to, since I can ask this in Spanish, a reaction regarding what Mujica said about the situation with the creditors or the bondholders and the stagnant negotiations with Prepa. Well, first of all, nice to meet you, and I've been in this position for a week with the board, and the work that has been done is very broad, and there's a lot to do. One of the areas that I think should be very important for the future of Puerto Rico is to focus on helping the Department of Education. I think that education should be one of the most important points for economic development of the island, since it connects to so many industries and it represents a very important world or a very important road to recovery and progress. Besides that, very soon our executive director is going to be leading some points that we consider to be very important. For example, having a centralized budgeting system. I would say that it's very important for that to be pretty robust, created to be robust, so that we don't fall in the same problems that led us here. If we don't have a robust accounting system and visibility from here to 5 years or 4 years, it's going to be very difficult to predict where finances will be. So I think we need to focus on that. And without a doubt, there are other topics that we need to focus on, but I think that those two are very important to me. In terms of the other question of the negotiations with the bondholders, since this is an active negotiation process, I don't think it would be a good idea for me to comment about that. And if there is any expression from the board, I would allow the chairman and the executive director to comment on that. I hope that those answers, I hope I had answered the question with that.
Any other question, Alex?
Bueno, pues entonces me gustaría.
Well, then, I would like Mujica to give me his reaction of how this situation, if they see an exit from this situation with the bondholders, or definitely if there's not a lot to expect from those negotiations.
I think the chairman probably more appropriate to answer the question with regard to where we are with regard to the creditors in the PREPA title.
In the negotiation process with
I mean, we're still in mediation. The judge today, I wasn't at the hearing. We were here for the meeting, but the judge ordered the parties to continue to try to reach a consensual resolution. And that's where we go to continue that mediation process. We are so far apart. We're always hopeful that the gap can be bridged to the mutual satisfaction of the bondholders and the board, but we just don't know whether or not we will succeed at that.
Thank you, Chairman. Any other questions? Okay, I see Oscar Serrano raise the hand. Go ahead, Oscar. Oscar from Noticel.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so good afternoon and happy holidays. The bondholders this morning laid out an offer that they've been discussing in mediation before the judge. why does exactly the board cannot accept that offer?
Well, that's a question that would really have to be addressed through our lawyers. Also, to the extent the offer is part of the mediation process, I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what they said. But to get into the evaluation of the order and a back and forth on it, that would be part of the mediation process. I can tell you, I think the past offer, I think is similar to what they laid out possibly today. But I don't think it's appropriate for us to speak about the pros and cons of the offer outside the context of mediation.
Thank you, Chairman. Go ahead.
Can you, I mean, in general terms, can you give the public a sense of why has the board not accepted whatever has been laid on the table so far?
Other than, I think I can probably limit to the fact that we think we are far apart with respect to what we believe would be an acceptable offer for PREPA.
Thank you, Chairman. I see Michelle Kasky has a question. Go ahead, Michelle Kasky from Bloomberg.
Hi, hello, thank you. I wanted to ask you, PREPA, in the past, you've talked about how PREPA needs some cash flow in order to tap more of the FEMA money. Where do things stand? I mean, I know there's the offer from the bondholders for 2.5 billion, but that sounds like even if that were to happen, that's sort of far away. Are you in discussions with any banks or any lending institutions, maybe to do a loan of some kind? Where are things at in terms of trying to get some money for PREPA?
I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question. The PREPA needs more cash flow in order to access the money from FEMA. I think the money.
Meaning you need PREPA needs some additional money in order to get more capital projects going, so that, because you guys have talked about in the past about there's all this FEMA money that has been approved for PREPA, but PREPA has not used all of the FEMA money because the FEMA money is a reimbursement after PREPA actually starts these projects and is paying contractors and things like that. So the question becomes, where does PREPA get the money to pay the contractors? If I'm remembering what this board has mentioned in the past.
So in the process, you have the FEMA money. The back and forth is trying to obligate those funds so that there is a level of confidence that there is going to be a reimbursement. Because what we don't want is spend money on projects prior to obligation, and then FEMA doesn't reimburse. And then we're not getting reimbursed on the project. So the way the process is working is do the statements of work, get them approved by FEMA, get the funds obligated, and then we could be spending. Yes, it is a reimbursement process, but there also is a mechanism whereby once the funds are obligated, you can draw down 25% of the funds. So you have cash flow while you're moving on the projects.
Okay.
So that is active and happening, but it requires the funds to be obligated, right? Because if you start spending prior to the obligation, then you're assuming all the risk that those projects aren't going to get reimbursed. But the issue of cash flow is an important one. And there are two things that are happening. One, the governor sent up to the legislature some modifications to the revolving loan fund to make it easier there's $700 million in a revolving loan fund that was designed to reimburse, provide cash flow
Mhm.
for just this thing. PREPA's ability to access that has been somewhat limited. We worked with the government to propose some changes to that fund. And the governor had proposed that to the legislature in this extraordinary session. Whether it's acted on in extraordinary session or acted on later, that provides a vehicle for additional cash flow. So between that as a vehicle for cash flow while you're getting obligated funds and the 25% cash advance, those two things can expedite, but the holdup is really getting FEMA to approve the statements of work that are being submitted in an expedited way so that there can be reimbursement. But there are mechanisms right now to provide cash flow.
And is the board or PREPA doing anything to try and speed up this process, try to get more projects up to FEMA to get that that authorization in light of the fact that the Trump administration will be coming in next month? So you have a change of administration in the White House. Is how is PREPA and the board preparing for that?
Yeah, so back in August, the board started bringing the parties together to identify what are the issues that are causing this slowness of the moving of the funds, right? We know that there's far more funds available than have been deployed, and the answer is why. So bringing all the parties together, we've been having conversations with FEMA, with Core 3, with PREPA, HANERA, in order to expedite the process. So we started that in August. And I think you can see from there to now,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of flow has increased in multiples. So the number of reimbursements have increased, right? I mean, the board agrees. Our view is you need some focused attention on this issue and addressing obstacle by obstacle, what are the issues? So the statement of work's not right. Does FEMA have enough resources on this? Recognition that this is an emergency and we need to move faster. But the board's been very active since office in bringing the parties together and then focusing on where are the obstacles, Core 3, FEMA, LUMA, HANERA, right? And how do we get these projects moving faster? But more importantly, how do you get the funds to flow faster?
Thank you, Michelle. We have a couple of questions, so we need to keep moving. Next
Okay.
question will be John Marino, then Luis Valentin, and then Elian. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, hi. It's kind of a related question, but I guess about the pension funding, the PREPA pension funding. I think the plan of adjustment is like the ultimate fix there. And I know we're hopeful that we'll get a confirmed plan next year, but does the board have to do anything to kind of shore up and ensure that PREPA can continue making its pension payments? There was a Commonwealth loan last year. And I know there's a PREB liquidity procedure taking place. I don't know if that's the solution. Can you talk about that at all? And my second question is just any target date for the PREPA fiscal plan.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So on the pensions, you're correct. Last year, I mean, just going back, right? PREPA failed to fully fund their pension system. In the absence of a plan of adjustment, also correct, that would be the ultimate solution to deal with the $4 billion in liabilities that the pension system has that are unfunded. Last year, we were notified that they would be unable to make pension payments to 12,000 retirees. The board recognized this as a challenge that they wanted to resolve. We ended up doing a loan from the Commonwealth to PREPA in order to ensure pension payments for a year. The year was because we anticipated that we would be hopefully out of Title III court and have the ultimate solution, which is the plan of adjustment in place. As the chairman just mentioned, we unfortunately have not reached a consensual deal yet. And in next month, at some point next month, there will be inability to continue. The 300 million in loan will run out. So we're working with the parties to come up with an alternative solution to make sure that those pension payments continue. We're in active discussions. As you point out, there are also, the PREB is also reviewing alternatives that they have, funding commitments that PREB can make. So we're monitoring it and we're looking for it. Our goal is, like last year, right, to come up with a solution to ensure that there is some kind of a bridge until there is a plan of adjustment to make sure that there isn't a gap in making those payments.
Thank you, Robert. Next question, Luis Valentin.
Yes, hi. I have a couple of questions. First, on the ERP, I believe that the government is trying to change the work calendar or the approach to the implementation. I want to know what's the ETA on the project, given that it's already delayed, and if the board has already considered and answered that request from the government. That will be the first question.
Yeah. As I think everyone saw, the transition hearings right over the weekend, ERP process is delayed. The current process, right, didn't result in it being done on time and on schedule. So now there's a desire to change the schedule and also make amendments to the contract. We're reviewing the amendments to the contract, but if you do the same things, you end up kind of with the same result. So we also are talking to the government about, are there changes in the process and the management of that contract that will result in a system that actually works, gets done on time, and contributes to the financial management reforms that the board just spoke about during the public board meeting. So the contract, there are contract amendments that we're reviewing, and we've also have some proposals that we're talking about with the government on how can we change the management of this contract to make sure that it can be completed on time and the deliverables are the ones that are going to result in all of the accounting system changes that we need.
Is there an ETA on that, like right now, on like an expected, or do you need to complete the whole process to be able to figure out when it's going to be fully implemented?
Contract expires at the end of this year. We can do a contract extension, or we can reach an agreement and then do the full contract. We hope to be able to reach agreement by the end of the year so that we can move forward.
Okay. Does this system needs to be fully implemented in order to comply with Section 209 requirements according to the board?
Yeah. The system is not a 209 requirement, right? 209 is a specific thing. What the system is an ingredient to Section 209, right? You need to have an accounting system that works. You need to know how much you're spending. You need to have an accounting system that actually works, which the government does not have. Financial markets look for that, and we know, right, how we got here in the first place, and the reason the board exists is there wasn't an accounting system that actually functioned, and it resulted in the bankruptcy. So the system needs to be put in place. It will be put in place in phases. So I think realistically, you have to roll it out in phases, make sure it works. Then you have to bring 8 different agencies online, make sure, right, that works. So this is part of it. But the ERP is not the answer to the financial management.
Okay.
The decisions were made that resulted in 16 years of budgets that were unbalanced, notwithstanding the fact that you had an accounting system that didn't work. Those decisions, so there's a broader financial management agenda that the ERP is part of. That is what the board just discussed at the public board meeting.
Okay.
All of these elements need to be done in part of it. ERP is part of that financial management agenda.
Okay, and just one last question. You talked about the transition hearings, and on those transition hearings, specifically the one where the fiscal group from the government talked on, they mentioned and there were comments about micromanaging from the board as of today and how it difficulted some of the processes that the government is undertaking. And even Zaragoza said that he has brought that issue with you personally And I just want, a quick comment on those comments made by government officials.
Let me go back to micromanagement of the board. The board didn't exist prior to 2018. For 16 consecutive years prior to 2018, the government spent more than it took in. Sometimes I think as you move further from the crisis that happens, you forget what happened and why we got here. We got here because the result of 16 years of consecutive budgets resulted in the largest bankruptcy, municipal bankruptcy in history. So the board then starts managing the budgets since 2018, and we had to do reductions. Now we have budgets that are in place. When you talk about micromanagement, we agreed with the governor last year on a budget that we thought was balanced, that we thought was responsible. And then we have the legislature, including the person you just mentioned, vote for over $1 billion in spending outside of the budget once we agreed to on a budget. So I don't think that's micromanagement. It's called prudent, responsible financial management. We hope to be able to work with the next administration, as we said, so that we have balanced budgets that fit within the fiscal plans, that are responsible, and you have systems in place to prevent even what happened last year, which is if you balance the budget, then you balance the budget. You don't then pass $1 billion in spending outside of the budget within days, right, of balancing the budget. So there actually is no desire we would like to have a handoff of the budget management processes that the board is having to the government, where we can then act as an oversight board and watch so that there aren't unbalanced budgets going forward. But up until now, working with the government, we've managed to do this, do the financial management reforms that we're talking about. Some of them are going to require legislation because the practices in Puerto Rico for financial management of budgets are vastly different than the practices in any state, and not in a good way. And those are and that's what needs to change.
Thank you, Robert. We are running out of time, so we will have Elian's question from El Vocero and then wrap it up. Thank you. Go ahead, Elian.
Yes, hello. It would be a question for Robert Mujica. I know you talked about how after restructuring there will be future steps. I know that currently there are a lot of topics on the table. Do you predict that the impasse that is currently happening will last until the next year, or do you think that it's not? Or do you think it's possible that there might be a
So which one are you
finalization?
referring to? Because we talked about a lot of different themes. So which are you referring to? Which will finish next year?
Yes.
Elian, I just missed that you cut out. Which specifically are you referring to, whether or not we could finish next year?
¿A cuál te referías, Elian?
It's in regards to the impasse with the bondholders and the PREPA debt
We are
or
hopeful
bankruptcy.
that we can complete the process in 2025. I think there was a desire to be finished before now. We'll go back into mediation and do what the court asks us to. I think at the end of the day, as the chairman mentioned, we need a plan that's feasible, right? And then a plan that will make sure that PREPA can continue to fund the operations, repair a system that had lack of investment for decades, repair a system that had a major blackout in June of this year, where there are over 100 load shed events where we're actually taking down generation capacity so that hundreds of thousands of customers don't have power because there isn't enough generation. So that is the system that exists, and it's in bankruptcy. So the goal would be to get them out of bankruptcy as quickly as possible. We hope so in 2025, so that we can expedite, right, the fixing of that system, but doing it in a responsible way.
Thank you, Robert. Last question from the chat, and we finish is when the Oversight Board will certify the PREPA fiscal plan.
We're presently getting the final information, we hope, from the different people that contribute to the plan. and reviewing that. So we hope we'll be able to get it, if not, by the end of the year, shortly thereafter.
Thank you all. Any other question, you can submit it via email and we can answer it after. Gracias a todos por estar. Thank you all.